Will you please welcome to the stage Mr. Brett Kelly.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's terrific to be here. My name's Brett Kelly, the founder and CEO of Kelly+Partners. In June 2006, my wife said to me, Rebecca, Brett, I really think you should just start your own firm. And at the time, I wasn't that excited about that. Now, my boss had promised one thing and delivered another, and so I knew I couldn't go forward in that firm. But I genuinely believe that accountants are in a very unique position to make a difference. And that is that they're sitting right there with the client, whether digitally or face-to-face. And the real question is, what are they going to do when they're there? Do they really genuinely believe that they have an opportunity to help somebody really reach their full potential? And so as a young person, I'd worked at Pricewaterhouse as an undergrad since I was 18. I spent 4.5 years there. Then I went into an investment bank. And one day the boss said to me, hey, Brett, have you got a minute? And I said to myself, well, when you're the boss, I guess I've always got a minute for the boss. And he said to me, we've decided to terminate your employment. And so I listened to him. He spoke for 10 minutes. I didn't say anything. And then he asked me, well, what do you think about that? And I'm thinking again to myself, two things. One, my mother said, if you're asked a stupid question, you should give a stupid answer. And the second thing I thought was, if he was really interested in what I thought, he would have asked me before he made his decision. So I said, it's not the best news I've had today. I went to outplacement and where I met a clinical psychologist, and they helped you that day sort of think about what you want to do, and told me that I could stay there for 6 weeks. I went home that night. My dad gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich, which said, meet people that have done well and ask them how they did it. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was 22 and a half, and I'm thinking, I've been in accounting, it's great. I went into investment banking, had the perfect job, and that really, frankly, wasn't very interesting. And so I came up with this idea. I thought, well, maybe I should just meet some people that have done some things that I might want to do and ask them what it was that they did that made them successful. I wrote to those 80 prominent Australians. I told them I was 22, unemployed, really keen to learn. If they could spend an hour with me and teach me what they knew, that I could learn, put it in a book and get it out to other young people. I did that, raised the money, published the book, turned it into a #1 best-selling book, and did a few hundred professional speaking engagements. I realized that from speaking, you really only get paid for the time you're there, and it takes a lot of time, and there's no scale to it. So I went back into an accounting firm that I knew was a place you could make a difference, and it was a fantastic business, but often not very well run. Fast forward, I finished my master's degree in tax. I become an accountant, fully fledged, and I'm waiting for this partner opportunity. And then the partner came back and, he'd promised the world, deliver an atlas, and gave me one proposal to sign up to the firm, and then a different reality when I delivered the results. And so I thought it's easy not to work with this type of person because I think keeping your word is really important. So I go home, we've got a young child, 9 months old. I tell my wife what's happened, and she's like, you should start your own firm. And I'm thinking, well, that's a bit of a hassle. And then I ring my best two mentor friends that I'd met through my book, and they said, yeah, you should do that. And I went, okay, well, that wasn't the answer I thought. I had two colleagues and friends of mine ring me and say, Brett, why don't you start a firm? And I thought, oh, that's actually not the answer I'm looking for. And so I rang my two largest clients and I said, what do you think I should do? And they said, start a firm. So I was a little trapped. So in June 2006, I started Kelly+Partners with my wife. 3 people joined us. I had $200,000 of personal billings, which I owned under my contract with my current employer, and a $360,000 wages bill before I paid myself. I was in a little spot. But I knew the big reason that I wanted to do what I was now proposing to do. And that was that I'd worked in firms that were basically run by Mr. Shit and his mate, who was also a shit. And basically what they'd do is just shit on the next guy who'd shit on the next guy who'd shit on the next guy. And then everyone would stand around and go, why is this firm so shit? And I knew clearly that leadership mattered. Now, if you look around the world today, whether business, government, or anything else, quality of leadership really is big to leverage in terms of outcomes. And so starting the firm, I just said, you need to be driven to create opportunity for other people in the business if you want to build a business. And so it was all about how do we create a model that ultimately allows people to reach their potential. Now, going backwards, I'm writing this book, I'm listening to all of the tapes from all sorts of interesting people, and I had an insight, and that was Steve Jobs was an employee of Atari, but they didn't manage to retain and develop him and create a great opportunity for him, so he just went off and built a small company like Apple. There was another bloke called Nelson Mandela who worked in a law firm, but they couldn't retain and develop him, so he went off and ran a country. And so really, you know that in your firm, you may well be sitting next to Steve Jobs, you may well be sitting next to Nelson Mandela, somebody with enormous potential that's never met two Olympians, that's never met a billionaire, that's never met a former prime minister. These are all people I interviewed in my book, and they have no idea how to actually reach their own potential. Right? They just grew up in a normal place with normal people, being normal, but they had abnormal potential. And all they were waiting to do was meet somebody who said, you can do it. Now in Australia, you've got to watch this. I'm Australian, so I have an accent. It's different to other people's accents. But in Australia, there's a lot of people who are can't do's. And, you know, as I went on that journey of writing that best-selling book, I had a lot of can'ts. They were saying, you can't write a book because you've got no expertise, you've got no money, you've got no publishing experience, you don't know how to distribute a book. How are you going to do this book? And so you'd get canted and canted and canted. But then I met one person, I was giving a presentation like this at a Rotary Club, and she said, can I ask a question? I said, yep. She said, actually, I want to make a comment. I said, fine. She said, I'm 86. I said, really? She said, I'm 86 and I just took up skydiving. I said, what did your children say? Well, they were can'ts, Brett. They said, this isn't the right time to do skydiving. You know, you could die. She's like, but I'm 86. I've had a pretty good run. She said, Brett, you're so right. In your whole life, you're unlikely to meet anyone that says you can do this and actually facilitate that and help you with all of the gifts and talents they have to reach your potential. Now, in our industry, we had these people sitting at the top, sort of fat cats. You know, my mates I refer to, the two shits, and they're pushing down. They're not actually looking to lift people up. And so the heart of the Kelly+Partners system that we worked out was, can you build a system that actually creates opportunity for other people? Now, I got this big idea from an American speaker that I was listening to when I was writing my book. He said, if you help enough people achieve their goals, you can achieve your goals. And so in the leadership of your firm or your life or anything else you're doing, the most important thing is, are you helping other people achieve their goals? Because if you are, the whole boat rises and you'll be able to achieve what you want to do. Now on this screen, I'm particularly proud that we've grown our revenues at 29.4% cumulative average for 19 years in a row. In June, 12th of June, the day we started the firm, 12th of June this year, we will have basically averaged 30% revenue growth for 20 years. Now we're surrounded by software companies and they're all high growth organizations wearing t-shirts. I specifically wore a tie today because I'm a rebel. Saw a great ad. It said, you know, don't be like your father, wear a tie. All those middle-aged fathers now don't wear ties. And basically our rebel mindset was to just say, can we grow as fast as any t-shirt wearing company while doing very high quality work for high quality clients where we really change their lives while making sure that our people's lives were what we call better off, healthier, wealthier, and wiser. And so the numbers are really just evidence. They're an outcome, not an input. So today we've done that for 20 years through what is known as programmatic acquisitions, where we are either buying all or part of firms. In 2006, when I started doing that, people are like, why would you buy an accounting firm? They're just junk. And I'm like, no, they're actually really good businesses, but often you're right, poorly run. Organic growth, service expansion, and digital innovation. That's essentially been the path. Now, as we go, we knew that the most important thing, and what I learned through my first best-selling book, was that everything you want to do, you need to do with and through people. I didn't know how to edit a book, proofread a book, typeset a book, design a book, distribute it, put it in a bookstore, do the PR. But I learned that if I knew how to treat people well and work with people that had 30 years experience, I put a 10-person team together. I had 300 years of experience working on my project when I was 22. Now, it's hard to be 300 when you're 22, but it's easy to get 300 years of experience if you know how to work with people. So today, we're the 17th largest firm in Australia. We've got about 700 people, and we've grown into Ireland and into the US and into Hong Kong and the Philippines. What I'm most particularly excited about is that there are 23,000 client groups in our business. Those client groups are private business owners. Our strategy was to only work with people that own their own businesses. And those businesses are typically 10 to 200 million in revenue. They have complex needs. They really care about what they've mortgaged their house to build. And so those people typically lock in with their accountants and have long-term relationships and really value your advice. But to actually scale your firm, who becomes the real question? And so for us, when I'm asked, what is it that powers the growth at Kelly+Partners? It's quality leadership from people with the right values. So we screen for three things. Is this person a person for others or a person for themselves? Is this person somebody that can keep their word or somebody that, couldn't stand up straight if their life depended on it? And are they somebody that can work in a team? Now, somebody will say to me, oh, it's really important to have technically excellent people. That's true, but it's more important first to have the right values. One of my great heroes says you want people with energy and integrity. And if you don't have energy and you don't have integrity together, that's a bit of a problem because then you've got an energetic person with no integrity. So in your firm and your life, just screen for values. If you get the right people, the great news is they will actually grow the business. As for a vision, why is a vision important? Nobody was ever moved by a small vision. And so when you meet the people that you want, and I do here, every firm that I speak to anywhere in the world says our largest challenge is attracting quality people. So what are you going to attract? You're typically going to attract yourself. You're going to attract people that share your values and your vision. So it's very important that you have thought through what are your values and what is your vision. And the key thing there is that if you don't like your people, you got to look at yourself. If you don't like your children, they look like you. And so that's kind of the reality for a lot of firms that are saying they're struggling to get good people. It is a reflection that they are struggling to be good people and they don't have a vision. So if you can develop clearly a vision that is not about what you want to do, but motivated by how it will move other people that you want to bring into your group, then you've really got a chance to find the people that can take the thing forward. So that this who, when it comes to firms, is the same thing. What I worked out in 2006, which I do consider ahead of the game, was that I could either recruit people one at a time, or I could try and find the partners that had built the firms where they'd mortgaged their house to build a firm. They'd put blood, sweat, and tears into that place. It was founder-led typically, and that they'd gathered around them lots of people with the same values that knew how to work as a team. And so we just went through these filters. Do they share our mission to help private business owners be better off and to be the best place for accountants to practice their profession? Do they share our values? Do they share our vision? If they want to choose to join in with those big ideas, then we've got a good chance of having the right people. So we're not just partnering indiscriminately with any firm. We're really just looking at that piece. If we get that right, we want to know that they really want to be part of Kelly+Partners. There's no point dating somebody that hates you. You've really got to find somebody that wants to be involved in what you're doing. And then you want them to own their own offices. Their core business is helping small and medium-sized privately held businesses, and those firms have 2 to 10 million in revenue. Now, we believe they're the best firms in the industry. And interestingly enough, those firms don't sell to private equity. They have a very long-term orientation, and there is a need from those firms to find the right type of people, the right type of situation. The thing that I just want to share there is we did go public in Australia in 2017, and the business has traded very well as a publicly listed stock. Now, what did we do? we've done a lot of work with some of the world's best businesses like McDonald's, and we knew since inception that the first thing I should do is write a little book on how to help a client and write a little system, an operating manual like McDonald's on actually how to run a proper firm. Get your mission right. There's 12 parts to our system, right from mission, values, vision, strategy, structure, which is a core foundation, all the way through the operations part of the business. What we see in the industry and what you'll see out there is you'll see lots of vendors selling stuff for your operations. But let me tell you, none of that stuff can help you if your foundations aren't good. So I'm walking around and and somebody says to me, what do you think AI is going to do for your business? What do you think software is going to do for your business? I don't think if you stuck AI up Keir Starmer's, he would be any better a prime minister, right? The bottom line is, if you don't have good leadership, you just don't have good leadership. You've got to get the leadership right. So we've got firm after firm after firm thinking that the next piece of software is going to change the firm. And it just isn't, right? If you look at Jim Collins' great book called Good to Great, the sixth step in his transformation process is software as an enabler. It's not the first piece. The first piece is level 5 leadership. Right second step, right people on the bus, get the people right. Then you have to know your hedgehog, what business you're in, and then sure, get hard after software and other operational techniques. But the bottom line is, if you don't have the right leadership and aligned people, you can't grow your business sustainably long term. So we really as an organization are focused here, align people with a purpose-driven culture, get a clear strategy. We only look after private business owners. So we don't do public companies, we don't do charities, we don't do government instrumentalities. We just look after private business owners, which has given us the ability to build systems and processes that are very deep for that type of client. And then we've got a particular structure. Now our structure, which I'll share with you, has resulted in profits that are 2 times the industry. Now, lots of people today are a little bit afraid of making a profit. They're a little anti-capitalism, and that's okay. But you don't want to be running a business if you're not a capitalist, certainly with your own money, let alone anyone else's. So for us, we want to be profit leaders. So we want to have the right values, but we also want to be very profitable. Again, Jim Collins talks about the flywheel. Across the top of a flywheel is your mission and your purpose. But under the bottom of that flywheel has to be the fuel, the financial fuel, to actually internally fund those businesses. Now, the average EBITDA in our industry in Australia, the UK, and the US is 17 or 18%, and that's self-reported. Now, we do know that people overestimate their profits, and so we know as a public company that if those firms are audited, I've seen over 1,000 firms, I think the average EBITDA is about 15%. So to run at profits that are 2 times the average that are public company traded and audited is exceptional, and to do it for 20 years. If you do that, you don't need to sell your soul to private equity, right? I hear firms saying, well, I've sold to private equity so we can invest in digital infrastructure, fit outs, and the capabilities or capacities we need to be a better firm. The reality is that if they're running a 35% EBITDA, they'd be able to internally fund their business and their growth. The reality is, frankly, because they can't run those profitabilities, they're really selling out, hoping to get some leadership, which might be helpful. We target 5% organic growth, so we can give somebody a pay rise. We want to run strong EBITDA margins, and we want to have 20 days WIP and 30 days debtors, so 50 days or less of lockup. And frankly, that balance sheet efficiency is incredibly important. We need a brand that has impact, and our brand is completely directed to the recruitment of talented people, not clients. If you get the right people, you look after them the right way, they'll do a great job of looking after your clients who'll bring more people. So our brand is a people-centered brand. Whenever you see anything that's got Kelly+Partners on it, don't think we're doing it to get clients. We're doing it to get the best accountants that share our values. And then we are investing in digital tools and innovation. And it's great to have Dan from Hello AI here, and Taylor, his beautiful partner, who are part of an AI group that have joined with our group. So how do you do all that? what I invented in 2006 was influenced by what I'd learned in my book. And that is, if you want to achieve your goals, you've got to help other people achieve their goals. So I came up with this crazy idea called a partner, owner, driver. And what that is our holding company, based on Buffett's mentality around permanent capital, and a holding company would buy a 51% interest in a firm, and the operating partners will hold 49%. And what we would do is we would run the business, and the partners would run the people, the clients, and the local brand leadership. And that has worked incredibly well. And the reason it's worked so well is accountants become accountants if they've got the right values, because they really want to help their clients. They want to work with their people and be great accountants. They actually don't want to fix the fit out, the photocopy of the marketing, the LinkedIn profiles, and all the other crap that you can see takes you away from being an accountant. Now, how we worked that out was I simply sat down and built what we call our progress pyramid. This bit here is the foundations of a firm. The bit above are the operations of the firm. Next to that, we looked at what a roll-up is, which is when somebody buys 100% of your firm. It doesn't work in professional services, and over 30 years has kind of failed many, many times. And we said, well, how could we do something that was different? You can find this online, have a bit of a study. I think you'll find some wisdom in it. But the game there really was, if you look at all of those pieces of that triangle, the question is, as an accountant, which parts do you want to do? Do you want to do all of those pieces? And what I saw, I used to work for the boss, and I'd say, hey, boss, how do I become a partner? And he goes, I can't tell you, I'm too busy. I'd be like, too busy doing what? Well, I'm looking after the staff. I'm looking after the clients. I'm looking after my family. I'm trying to run the firm. I'm basically ripped in four. Now, we are in the territory where I think they used to do that sort of thing, that hung drawer and quarter thing. And basically, for a partner in a traditional accounting firm, that's what's happening to you. You're being torn in four, right? You got your partners, you got your clients ripping off one leg, then you got your staff ripping off the other leg, then you got your wife and kids tearing off your other arm, and then you're trying to run the firm, which you were never trained to do, you're not very good at, you have no interest in, and then you do a quite poor job. Now, the problem with that is that as a young accountant, I'm sitting there looking at the boss thinking he's meant to be the guy, or she's meant to be the guy I'm meant to turn into when I grow up, right? I'm like, this is my mentor, this is what I'm aspiring to be. But the bosses would be walking around like they're miserable. And I once said to one of my bosses, I said, how come you're so miserable? Like, if it's your firm and you're miserable and I don't run the joint, how am I expected to be anything other than miserable if you have all of the power to make this better, but you refuse to do that? And when I ask you, you won't let me because I'm a little hyperactive and annoying. He said, that's a very good point, Brett. I've got to go and play golf. So we built this model. We worked out the parts of the business. We said, these are the problems that accountants have, right? In too many firms, the accountants are working with partners that are self-interested and don't care about them, where the values are loosely held and what I call fractionalized, which means everyone's got different ones and there's no real coherence. In terms of vision, there's sort of this hope. I love another American speaker, Jim Rohn. He said, when you grow up, don't be a wandering generality, be a meaningful specific. And so the vision of most firms are kind of wandering generalities. They're like, yeah, one day we're going to be awesome. And then when you ask them what day that is, do they have a plan and they're working towards a specific date? They can't tell you that. Strategy, sort of obtuse and unfocused. There kind of isn't one. Structure, it's traditionally owned, but nobody can explain that to you. I have personally been into more than 1,000 accounting firms, and in more than 90% of those firms, there is not a signed partnership agreement. If you are working for a group of partners who can't even agree enough with each other to sign a partnership agreement, your hopes as a young person are not great, and the firm that you hope to buy into is kind of crap. So that's just the foundation of a firm. Then in terms of big challenges, it's attraction of staff retention, unsystemized, undocumented process, increasing client demand, subscale back office and increased compliance, external from everywhere, digital surveillance, no formal capability and risk, undifferentiated brand, low growth, slow moving, succession planning, and it's awesome to be an accountant. Let's be a partner in that firm. So I'm there, I'm a young guy, I'm working in that type of firm thinking this is terrible. And literally, when my wife said, why didn't you start, just start your own firm? I looked at her like she was crazy. Like it was the last thing I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I've seen all this. She's like, but you're really good at this. You could just make a better firm. And I was like, thanks for your confidence. That's probably what I should do. So over here at Kelly+Partners, we basically said, we don't think that we can do better than what we see in the industry. I really genuinely didn't. I was not sitting there going, look, I can do better than that. But I knew I definitely could not do worse. And that with a team, we could certainly get together and probably make organizations that we could at least be proud of, right? That we wouldn't have to say to our kids, oh, it's great if you come to work, Kelly+Partners is terrible and our technology doesn't work and we don't have a plan for our people and we really don't care about them, but it's awesome, because it kind of isn't. So really it's that conception of what's possible. It's a systemized version of what you do in an accounting firm. What do? We built some chevrons, then we built a whole playbook under that. There's 204 steps. We've done it 95 times. And what it results in is doubling the profits of a firm and reducing their working capital by 2/3. Our staff turnover is 8% against an industry where turnover is about 30. So we knew that we had a clear objective to be the first choice accounting firm for a talented accountant, the first choice accounting firm for a business owner that wants to do something, wants to go somewhere, and that we had a clear scope across personal, business, wealth, and estate. We knew the markets that we wanted to play in, and we built a unique permanent capital, ultimately listed company vehicle where it's ours and our partners' money. We had a clear business model. We'd built this partner-owner-driver for running the firms, and we have a 50-person services team working on 9 of those 12 parts of the business to make sure that the partner saves 25 to 40% of their lives and isn't doing things that they're really not good at, don't have any interest in, and never get around to. So the bottom line of what I wanted to share, and I'm happy to take some questions, is that if you have any hope to make the firm that you're operating in better, it has to start with clarity of values. And not woohoo values, not like cuddles and that sort of thing, but just clarity around who are the people that are near you that you want to spend time with. Now, I have 7 brothers. I now have 6 because one morning my brother got up and he was driving to a conference and he got hit by a truck and he died. He was 45. My favorite saying is that time is limited and death is certain. And so it's been very clear to me that the people that you let near you have a real influence on you. And so you should select very, very carefully who's near you so that you can optimize, firstly, the quality of your life, the quality of your professional experience. Because if you get the right vibes around you and the right values which create the right vibes, you've actually made somebody bigger and stronger and much more likely to be able to go into the market and do something positive. So it's easy to say, very, very hard to do, but you do tend to attract who you are. So we all know as leaders, work on ourselves is the most important thing to actually make sure we turn up in the right way. But if you know that in a typical firm of 2 to 10 million people, you're talking less than 50 people. So you're not trying to recruit the whole firm, right? Most firms are run by people unfit for the roles that they have in terms of the leadership. The partnership agreement's not signed. There's no alignment around what the partnership exists for, what its mission is, what differences they're trying to make. So that's basically 95% of the industry. And we haven't even talked about the big 4 yet, right? So that the competition for the very few people you need is almost non-existent. If you can be a person that is genuinely motivated by helping your people become the best they can be, if you know that you will fastidiously keep your word, and that if you make a promise, you'd rather die than not keep it, and if you know that you're team-oriented, that you really genuinely believe that a team can do more than an individual, the great news is there is no shortage of talent because most people have many of those attributes and they want to work in firms that have those ideas, but most of the industry really isn't providing that. So the good news is they're sort of, stranded looking for a great place to go. So essentially that's the Kelly+Partners story. That's what we're on about. We're trying to one person, one firm, and one community at a time, help accounting firms understand the huge impact they can have if they're prepared to get up early, stay up late, and make a difference. And with that, I'd like to thank you for attending today and wish everyone a great day. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.